We'll begin in West Africa, where Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has resolved to implement the Stephen Orunsanye report that called for a leaner government by merging some agencies and scrapping some others. The president's decision was announced by presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga in a post on X. Onanuga said 12 years after the panel submitted its report on restructuring and rationalizing federal government parastatals and agencies, and a white paper issued 2 years after, President Tinubu and the Federal Executive Council have decided to implement the report. A cross-section of Nigerians had called on Tinubu's administration to implement the Orunsanye report as a way of cutting the cost of running government. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar had urged President Bola Tinubu to take lessons from the Argentine president on economic reforms. The Trade Union Congress, TUC, has called on the federal government to fix a new minimum wage to tackle the rising cost of living in Nigeria. Since the removal of fuel subsidies, the cost of living has spiked and inflation figures pushing new highs in the country. Although there have been protests and meetings between labor unions and authorities to roll out measures to ease the hardship, TUC President Festus Osifo called for a review of the 30,000 naira minimum wage. He spoke in Abuja on Monday during a press briefing barely 24 hours before the commencement of the nationwide protest by the Nigeria Labour Congress over the high cost of living. In a related development, the presidency again has warned the Nigeria Labour Congress not to embark on its two-day nationwide protest against the rising cost of living in the country. On February 16, the NLC announced the nationwide protest scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday over the alleged government's failure to implement agreements reached between both parties on October 2, 2023, following the removal of fuel subsidy. Special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, and the police handed down the warnings as 65 civil society groups on Sunday pulled out of the planned demonstration, warning against its possible hijack, arguing that it could worsen the deteriorating situation. The NLC president, Joe Ajero, had insisted in a statement on Sunday that the protest will be held on Tuesday and Wednesday as planned. The decision followed the conclusion of a 14-day ultimatum issued to the federal government to implement measures against widespread hardship. In the meantime, the Nigerian police has deployed security operatives across the state in anticipation of the planned protest slated for tomorrow. New Central crew roving the state observed heavy presence of police personnel at Ojota and Surulere area of Lagos State. Let's also tell you that the Maritime Workers Union of Nigeria said it will join the two-day nationwide protest being organized by the Nigeria Labour Congress. This was contained in a statement on Monday by the head of media, Kennedy Ikemefuna. Ikemefuna said the move was necessary following the directive of the NLC that its affiliate members across the nation should strictly comply. NLC announced the nationwide protest scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday over the alleged government's failure to implement agreements reached between both parties on October 2, 2023, following the removal of fuel subsidy. The decision followed the conclusion of a 14-day ultimatum issued to the federal government to implement measures against widespread hardship. So we now have in the studio to discuss the planned protest by Nigeria Labour Congress. We're joined by human rights activist Declan Ihekare. Thank you very much, Declan, for joining us. There's already protests across this country. We've had in Niger, we've had in Lagos, we've had in other states, and we still have the NLC insisting on going on protest tomorrow and Wednesday. Considering the tense nature of the country at the moment and those that are pulling out, do you think the NLC's insistence to continue with the protest is well thought through?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the government of the day should give kudos to members of the NLC, the organized labor, NLC is known to be an organized set of people who don't do things in a rough manner, who are always organized in doing things. And we should not forget that what NLC is doing or what NLC is trying to do is something that is fundamental in getting best of governance. Every government needs to be checkmated. Every government needs to be asked questions here and there. And if you're in government and you don't want questions to be asked, then it means you're heading towards failure. See, we just have to face reality. What NLC is about doing tomorrow, or the organized labor, or Nigerians as a whole, is what also happens during the electioneering period. Any election where you contest an election is also an act of protest against malgovernance that you see in other government that has existed before you're coming in. And so NLC is in order, and the government should give kudos to them.
Well, I mean, you would agree with me that there is some sense of fatigue from a lot of citizens, considering that this is not the first time that Labour will call for protest. Remember, they do the same, they go through the same process. They give warning ahead of time, 14-day, 10 days, 20 days ultimatum, and then they go on protest. But we rarely see concrete results from this protest. What's your optimism level that this time will be different?
Yeah, I want to believe seriously that at this point in time, organized labor will not work towards failing Nigerians. Just like democracy is the hope of the common man, so also in making sure you agitate for good governance, labor is also seen as hope of the common people on the streets. Don't forget, the democracy we're enjoying today came as a result of protest. It came as a result of protest against the military regime. And so the people in power today who are enjoying the democratic situation should also give it to the civil society, which labor belongs to. They should not see labor as anti-government. No, it's not the best. When you see labor as anti-government, then when the protest gets out of hand, or when the protest is organized by unorganized people, I think that would be more dangerous. But at this point in time, labor is right. Labor should be given the go-ahead. As a matter of fact, there's nothing like go-ahead, because the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has already given freedom of expression. And I think that covers what NLC is about doing tomorrow.
It's curious, though, when you say people that are not organized protests. We've had protests seemingly organized across this country, and the federal government, they must have seen this in the news, but there hasn't been any response. The only response we're getting for the NLC is the warning by a spokesperson to the president that they shouldn't embark on this strike. They are only going to worsen the situation. These feelers, does it give hope that the federal government will listen this time around, really?
Yeah, I just want to let you understand that the protest that has been going on even before the one coming up tomorrow has sent signals to the federal government. If you really watch out, so many committees have been set up here and there by the government as a result of the protest that has occurred. Don't forget, Niger State has never participated.
But hasn't been a direct correlation that it's the protest that is instigating these committees?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. The fear of mass action is the beginning of wisdom for any democratic government. As a matter of fact, this very protest that has been happening as a result of hunger in the land and insecurity has really put this government on its toes. For the first time, we're seeing meetings here and there, committees being set up here and there. And I think they should just understand that Nigerians need to use this opportunity to express their feelings in a way that they should understand. And I think that's the best way to go.
Not to be a clog on the wheel of your thoughts for pushing for the needs of the people, but committees are one a dime. Like, we have them all the time. These committees, some people have argued that it's just a way of government. You're saying this as a result of the protest. That may be so. But have we seen situations where these committees actually come up with solutions to the problems? High cost of living, for instance, skyrocketing prices of petrol that doesn't seem to be coming down.
Yeah, there have been instances where committees are set up, and at the end of it all, whatever proposal they give to the government is not being utilized. But what I'm saying in essence is this. From what I've seen of recent, whenever Nigerians agitate in this current dispensation, I see a shake-up within the system. I see the government trying to move towards the direction of the people, but they have not really, they've not totally got it right. And for instance, a few weeks ago, I heard that a committee was set up. I watched it on one of the media forum where government met manufacturers of cement companies, and they were like saying that, okay, a bag of cement should go between 7,000 and 8,000 naira. That was because people were agitating that the cost of cement was getting higher and higher. And I remember clearly that since still today, the price of cement is still at high cost as 10,500 to 11,500, depending on the area. And like me as an individual, as a right activist, I also have intent of protesting against certain individuals who has been insensitive to the plight of Nigerians, who are also part of the so-called advisory committee of the current government. For instance, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, you know him very well. The cement he sells, or people sell today that belongs to Dangote, goes for as much as 10,500 and 11,000 naira. And you ask, why would such person be in the advisory committee of the government after he has said, okay, we have agreed that cement will go for 7,000, 8,000 naira? There are so many anomalies that we need to tackle at this point in time. And I think the government should give listening ear to the people who are telling them the truth and not those that will just be clapping for them even when they are wrongdoing.
Declan, thank you very much. Indeed, they say without hope, all is lost. So let's keep hope alive. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
You're welcome.
Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has set up a tripartite committee, including key private sector players, some state governors, and several cabinet members, expected to tackle the nation's forex crisis and bring an end to the escalating inflation being witnessed in the country. Members of the committee, while speaking to newsmen after the meeting, expressed confidence that Nigeria's economic challenges will be addressed. Amadine Uyi tells us more.
Between September 2023 to February 2024, the US dollar gained approximately 193% to the Nigerian naira. This has caused an escalating inflation in the country, resulting to the increasing prices of basic commodities, notably foodstuff. In a bid to end this trend, President Bola Tinubu met with members of the organized private sector, including several governors, to rescue the situation.
We are looking for additional efforts that might help the downtrodden Nigerians, and we will provide that hope and the assurance that the economic recovery is on its way.
It's a tripartite meeting and designed to, put heads together and to think together.
We had a very, very good meeting, and what we discussed is generally about the economy, food security, security of the nation. We discussed everything in detail.
Players after the meeting say the issue of the rise in the dollar to the naira, which are affecting goods and services, was discussed.
We have discussed on how to, bring the foreign exchange, the rate down, because we all know that what is happening in, as regards the foreign exchange is artificial, it's manipulative. Everything in Nigeria is indexed to the foreign exchange, especially when it comes to, stuff that we import into the country.
Those in attendance have expressed optimism that with this meeting, Nigeria has repositioned itself to address its economic woes. They said the next phase now is the implementation of resolutions reached.
I leave that meeting with a lot of enthusiasm, excitement, and optimism about the future of our country. I believe that implementing the decisions we arrived at today will help propel our economy and help alleviate the poverty in the land.
It's now the execution. Once it's all got done, executed, and this becomes a standing committee that will be meeting from time to time.
We are hopeful, and we're a great nation. We have what it takes to turn around the economy, and we are going to do that.
I can assure you that all hands are on deck. All governors have resolved to join hands with Mr. President to ensure that, you provide the necessary intervention to cushion the effect of what we are going through.
With the work of the committee set out for it, Nigerians will be hoping that visible results will soon start to manifest. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
Earlier, financial analyst Kalu Aja was on the news and spoke on this issue.
The first thing to note is that there's scarcity of dollars in Nigeria. That's a fact. How much of that scarcity is driving the prices and how much is speculation is now up in the air. But the fact is, if you want to buy dollars today, you're going to have limited supply. Hence, economics says the price has to go up. That's what we've been seeing from the 400 to 700 to the 1.2, now to the 1.4 and 1.5 and all that. So there has to be some truths in that a bit of it is speculative because folks are moving from naira to the dollar, and a bit of it is, of course, caused by the supply, the lack of supply of dollars to the market. Prices are determined by demand and supply. There's a huge demand, but the supply has not kept pace. Where's the supply? Crude oil sales. That's where the problem is. Nigeria is not exporting enough crude oil today. Hence, you have limited supply. So the tripartite guys can come in and say, hey, this is how we can boost supply, maybe do FDIs, FPIs, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the real question is, how can we sell more crude oil from Nigeria to then earn more United States dollars that can then supply the market and take the pressure off? Remember, we're still owing lots of outstandings from the CBN and all that to third parties, airlines and all. So that is there. Unless we take care of that, then whatever suggestions the tripartite committee makes can then start to have an effect. So
away from that, the Defense Headquarters has delivered a resolute response to quell rumors of a coup plot allegedly looming over Nigeria. In a statement issued earlier today, Brigadier General Tukur Gusau, the acting director of Defense Information, refuted claims circulated by an online media outlet suggesting heightened alert within the Presidential Guards Brigade amid suspicions of an impending coup. The Defense Headquarters condemned what it regarded as unfounded assertions, labeling them as mere fabrications intended to sow discord and panic among the populace. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, reiterated the unwavering commitment of the armed forces to uphold democracy, dismissing any notions of subversion. A federal high court in Abuja has fixed March 19, 2024 to rule on the fresh bail application filed by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. The court also scheduled March 20 for the commencement of the resumed trial. The trial judge, Justice Binta Nyako, adjourned after listening to the argument by counsel to parties in the matter. The trial resumed on the matter on Monday after being suspended after the Court of Appeal discharged and acquitted Kanu in October 2022. The appellate court also declared illegal and unlawful the rendition of Kanu from Kenya to Nigeria and quashed the entire terrorism charges brought against him by the federal government.
A little disappointment remains that the court could not do a bench ruling on the bail application today. See, our client here has been detained for almost 5 years, counting to when he was detained from 2015 to today. So each extra day he remains in detention is a blight on his right to his liberty. So every lawyer should fight to have him enjoy his bail, be granted bail, so he can enjoy some freedom from this almost 5 years of detention and almost 7 years of being in exile. 3 weeks is not too much, but I would have preferred a bench ruling today. We've always been ready for trial, but as my lord stated, trial is not for us to conduct, it's for the prosecution to conduct. Ours is to do cross-examination and put our defense at the end of the trial. We're ready.
Thank you.
The bail application is not meant to delay trial, as the prosecution suggested.
Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, has sworn in 11 new justices to the bench of the Supreme Court, charging them not to allow the ambition to becloud their sense of judgment. Jumai Sankey, Chidebere Owa, Chioma Nwosuiheme, Haruna Samani, and more are doing. Others are Justice Obande Ogboniya, Stephen Ada, Habib Abiru, Jamilu Toker, Abubakar Umar, and Muhammad Idris. Justice Ariwola noted that interaction of the new justices with people of unviable inclinations and pedigree, if any, must be halted forthwith, and they should allow their conscience to guide and filter every of their thoughts that transverse their mind.
It is a memory I will cherish all my life because it is unprecedented in the annals of the Nigerian Supreme Court. Like I stated in my 2023-2024 legal year speech, precisely on Monday, the 27th day of December 2023, the inability of the court to meet up the statutory full complement of 21 justices had lingered on for too long, thus appearing to be like a jinx. I therefore made a categorical pledge that before I finish my tenure as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, I would, by the special grace of God, do everything within my ability to break that jinx and get on board the well-deserved full complement of the court. Today, as it were, it is apparent that all that is now history, and a very palatable one at that for the Nigerian judiciary and the country at large. As new justices of this honorable court, your lordships should note that you are coming on board at a time when our rank had been grossly depleted to an all-time low of 10 justices for a number of reasons, mainly retirements and deaths. We heartily welcome your lordships to our fold and wish you an eventful and pleasurable sojourn in the apex court of our dear country. Your lordships are neither new to oath-taking nor the structure and template of judicial work, just as you must have had several speeches in the course of your career. In the light of this, I will not dissipate my energy in rendering any form of homily. Your lordships are all seasoned judicial officers transiting from the Court of Appeal and have accordingly established some remarkable acquaintances with judicial oath and rules guiding the conduct of judicial officers.
Chairman of Sudan's Sovereignty Council, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, arrived in the Libyan capital, Tripoli, on an official visit. Burhan held discussions with the President of Libyan Presidential Council and the Prime Minister of the Libyan Government of National Unity. In ventures to broker peace between the warring parties, the Libyan government also extended an invitation to the commander of the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, Lieutenant General Mohammed Dagalo, which he has accepted. After his arrival in Tripoli, al-Burhan was received by the President of the Libyan Presidential Council, Mohamed Yunus al-Menfi, and the Prime Minister of the Libyan Government of National Unity, Abdul Hamid Daba. President of Somaliland has accused Somalia's government of being complicit in the death of an aviation expert from the self-declared republic. Abdinasser Dahabil, an employee of the Somali Civil Aviation Authority, was found dead on February 18. Forensic examinations confirmed signs of torture on the body, which was discovered in his home in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. Speaking at his funeral after his body was deposited to his birthplace, President Abdi expressed an urgent need for transparency and justice. He accused Somalia's government of assassinating Dahabil and asked for clarity on the circumstances surrounding the death of the expert. For months, families affected by a deadly rubbish dump collapse in Mozambique have not received the financial support promised to them by the government. The dump, which was known to be home to some of the capital city's poorest residents, collapsed 6 years ago. At least 17 people were killed and many more who built makeshift camps amid the rubbish were made homeless. In response to the disaster, the government pledged 30,000 Mozambique meticas per quarter to each affected family. The country's Land and Environment Minister has now responded to complaints from an association for the victims, which says that for the past 5 months, 120 families have stopped receiving the payments. The minister says the government is trying to obtain the financing to continue the support. The United States says Israel and mediators have reached an understanding about the outline of a truce in the Gaza Strip in exchange for the release of hostages held by the Islamist group Hamas. According to reports, the framework reached in Paris provides for the release of some 40 hostages held in Gaza, including women, children, female soldiers, and elderly and ill abductees amid a pause in fighting of some 6 weeks in a tentative first stage. The U.S., Egypt, and Qatar are mediating negotiations in Paris over the Israel-Hamas conflict. Joining me on the news to discuss this is Communications and Campaigns Manager at Africa for Palestine, Ali Komape. Thank you very much, Ali, for joining us. What would be...
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for giving us your time. What is your reaction to reports that mediators are about to broker a truce deal between Hamas and Israel in Gaza?
Our understanding is that the Israeli regime has sent a delegation to the Paris ceasefire peace talks, if you can put them. They've come back to meet the Israeli War Council, or the Genocidal Council, as we call it. And they are sending another senior delegation to Qatar for the talks. What we know is that the Israeli regime is not interested in peace. They've never been interested in peace, and peace defeats their purpose of expelling all Palestinians through ethnic cleansing and, as of recent, genocide. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Qatar, but we know that Israel is not interested in peace. In fact, the Israeli regime is not interested in getting the hostages back from the resistance movement in Gaza. We've seen thousands and thousands of Israelis domestically protesting, calling for the government to take more measures in dealing with Hamas to get the hostages back, when Israel is just not interested at all. What they are interested in is their genocidal campaign in Gaza and nothing else.
What would, or in your view, what should the two parties do to ensure that truce is reached and permanently kept in place? You don't seem to have much optimism that that will happen.
In fact, the Islamic resistance movements and other movements, resistance movements in Palestine have been offering some kind of ceasefire deals to the Israelis. I think their biggest bargaining chips were the hostages. But time and again, Israel has ignored these peace deals or ceasefire deals. So we believe that Palestinians don't want violence. I mean, you're looking at over 30,000 Palestinian killed, over 13,000 children. Palestinians don't want this. Palestinians don't need more of this genocide to continue. So at any moment, peace is more vital because it guarantees Palestinian lives to be spared. So the resistance movement has been calling for ceasefire, has been calling for peace talks. But there's one party that does not want peace, and there's one party that at every turn refuses this peace or ceasefire talks, and that's the Israeli regime of Netanyahu. So it'll be interesting to see again, like I said, but the Palestinians don't want more death. I think Palestinians have seen enough blood spilled in Gaza. And then the Palestinian resistance movement leaders have been saying to the Palestinians and to the world that we've had enough, we want a ceasefire, we want peace. And they broke us such deals. Remember, there were these short spans of humanitarian aid coming in and releasing some hostages. and then there's some peace corridors, those type of makeshift arrangement. But as we've seen, you can't take a break in genocide. Genocide has no break; it continues. So Palestinians want peace. They've always wanted peace. It's Israel that is not interested in peace.
Okay, I guess I should be asking now, what is the Africa for Palestine proposed permanent solution to the conflict?
I mean, we have the same inclination as the International Criminal Court of Justice that has called for the halting or the complete stopping of the targeting and killing of civilians in the Gaza Strip. We agree with the African Union that what's happening in Israel is in Palestine, is genocide, and there must be a stop to it. There are many other international and humanitarian bodies that are calling for an end to the bombardment, an end to the killing, the end to the genocide, including the South African government among many in the continent. So that is our stand, and that's where we stand as Africa of Palestine. But also, I think we are consistent. We are consistent, and we've been consistent in our messaging that the only time that there can be peace in Palestine, the only time where there can be an end to violence and wars and so on, is the end of the illegal occupation of Palestinian lands by Israel, the end to apartheid, and the end to gross human rights violations. Without that happening, there will be these episodes of conflict time and again, because to put matters into perspective, under international law and under the Geneva Convention, people who are occupied by an occupying foreign power have the right to resist. Among many other forms of resistance, they have the right to armed resistance against that occupying power.
All right.
So unless this occupation ends, unless this apartheid regime has collapsed, we don't see any lasting solution.
Ali, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for having us.
And that's all at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. TUC calls for new minimum wage as unions insist on nationwide strike. Tinubu set to implement Oronsai report to scrap merged agencies. Somaliland president accuses Somalia of murdering aviation expert. Would like to hear from you? Please send your eyewitness reports to the number on the screen. You can follow us on social media if that's easier. That's at News Central TV, or you could watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and on YouTube. Many thanks as always for watching. Good evening.